Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I begin in the name of Allah, the All Beneficent, the All Merciful. Nafsul Mehmoom, a heart-rending tragedy of Karbala by Sheikh Abbas Kummi. Continuation of chapter 46. Movement of Mukhtar in Kufa. In this year, that is 66 after Hijrah, 14th Rabiul Ula, Mukhtar revolted in Kufa and ousted Abdullah bin Muti, the governor of Abdullah bin Zubair, from there. It started when Sulaiman bin Surad was martyred and his companions returned to Kufa. They saw that Mukhtar was imprisoned by Abdullah bin Yazid Hatami and Ibrahim bin Muhammad bin Talha. Mukhtar sent them a letter from the prison in which he praised them and promised them success, and he announced to them that he was deputed by Muhammad bin Ali, renowned as Ibn Hanafiya, to seek vengeance for the blood of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. His letter was read by Rufa'a bin Shaddad, Musanna bin Makhraba Abadi, Sa'ad bin Huzaifa bin Yaman, Yazid ibn Anas, Ahmad bin Shamid Ahmari, Abdullah bin Shaddad Bajali, and Abdullah bin Kamil. After having read the letter, they sent bin Kamil to Mukhtar with the message that we are your well-wishers, and if you desire, we shall lay siege and rescue you from the prison. When Mukhtar heard this, he was overjoyed and said, I shall be released from the prison in a few days. Mukhtar had sent a message to Abdullah ibn Omar that I have been imprisoned innocently, and he had desired that Ibn Omar should plead on his behalf to Abdullah bin Yazid and Ibrahim bin Muhammad bin Talha. He in turn wrote a recommendation letter to them, and they relented and released him. But they took surety from him and an oath that until they held the reins of the government of Kufa, he should not pave way for their captivity or revolt against them. And if he does so, he shall be compelled to sacrifice 1,000 camels near the Kaaba, and all his slaves, males and females, shall be emancipated. And when Mukhtar was released, he remained at his house, and with whomever he met, he said, May Allah kill them. What foolish men they are that they believe that I shall honor the promise that I have given them. And as regards the promise, I always look at the task that is better than it, and then give compensation for it, and thus I become free from the promise, while my stand against them is better than remaining aloof from them. As regards the sacrifice of camels and emancipation of slaves, it is more easier for me than spitting. I befriend that if I reach my goal, I shall have no desire for slaves. Thereafter, the Shia visited him often and started liking him in conformity to one another, while his companions started increasing day by day and gained strength until Ibn Zubayr suspended Abdullah bin Yazid and Ibrahim bin Muhammad bin Talha and appointed Abdullah bin Muti as the governor of Kufa. Then, when Ibrahim decided to go to Kufa, Bahir bin Rustam Humairi met him and said, Do not leave tonight, for the moon is in the Aries. He replied, We too are proceeding, while he would proceed towards any danger that he desired without fear. And it is as if his speech enamored him while he was a valorous man. Ibrahim returned to Medina while having a large amount of taxes with him, but he said that the situation was very bad and no taxes could be collected, while Ibn Zubair did not press him further. Ibn Muti entered Kufa while 5 days of the month of Ramadan were left, and appointed Ayas ibn Abi Mazarib Ajali as the chief of the police force, and commanded him to treat the people pleasantly and arrest the suspicious ones. When he reached Kufa, he ascended the pulpit and recited a sermon, saying, Now then, the commander of the faithful, he meant Abdullah bin Zubair, Allah's refuge. The commander of the faithful has deputed me upon your city and your boundaries, and he has ordered me to collect the taxes from you and not to take anything outside of the city from your taxes without your permission, and to treat you in conformity to the last will of Omar, as also the custom of Uthman bin Affan. Therefore, fear Allah and remain steadfast upon the right. Do not cultivate disobedience, while slash the hands of the foolish among you. And if you do not do so, then condemn yourself for it. By Allah, I shall punish severely every evil hearted disobeyer, and shall straighten the back of every perverse and ignoble suspect. Hearing this, Sa'ib bin Malik Ash'ari rose and said, as regards the booty, we declare that we disagree that a large part of it should be taken out. Rather, it should be distributed amongst ourselves. And we do not want you to treat us in conformity to the attitude of anyone else except Ali bin Abi Talib, peace be upon him, that still remains amongst us in our city. While we do not have any need for the attitude of Uthman, neither in the matter of booty nor regarding our own selves, as also of Omar ibn Khattab, whereas his attitude was little soft as compared to that of Uthman, for sometimes he treated people with virtue. Yazid ibn Anas replied, Sa'ib speaks the truth. Then bin Muti said, I shall deal with you in conformity to the attitude of whomsoever you desire. Saying this, he alighted the pulpit. Ayaz came to him and said, This Sa'ib bin Malik is from among the commanders of Mukhtar. Then dispatch him to fetch Mukhtar, and when he comes, imprison him until the people's affairs get straightened. His provisions have been gathered, and as if he desires to revolt. Bin Muti dispatched Zaida bin Quddama and Hasin bin Abdullah Barsami to fetch Mukhtar. They told him, Hasten to the call of the commander. Mukhtar prepared to go when Zaida recited the verse of the Quran, and when planned they against you, those who disbelieved, that they might imprison you or slay you or drive you away. Hearing this, Mukhtar threw away his clothes and said, Wrap me with a gown, for fever has taken hold of me, and I sense severe trembling within me. They returned and informed Bin Muti, who then lifted his hands off him. Thereafter, Mukhtar sent someone to fetch his companions and made them reside in the adjoining houses, while he intended rising up in the city of Kufa in the month of Muharram. A man from the clan of Shibam, a branch of the clan of Hamadan, named Abdurrahman bin Shuray, who was modest, came and met Sa'id bin Munqis Sawri, Sa'ar bin Abi Sa'ar Hanafi, Aswad bin Jarar Kindi, and Quddama bin Malik Jashmi, and said, Mukhtar intends to drag us to revolt while we are not sure whether Muhammad bin Hanafiya has sent him or no. Come, let us go to him and apprise him regarding Mukhtar. Then if he directs us, we shall obey him and be his associates. And if he refuses, we shall get away from him. By Allah, it should not be that we should let go our religion for this world. They agreed and went to Ibn Hanafiya, who inquired from them regarding the affairs of men. They gave him the details and related to him their stand as also that of Mukhtar, and asked his permission to obey him. Then when they concluded their speech, Ibn Hanafiya, while answering them, after praising and glorifying Allah and relating the merit of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, and remembering the sufferings of the martyrdom of Imam Hussain, peace be upon him, said, regarding whom you have inquired that he invites you to avenge our blood, by Allah, I desire that Allah may take revenge from your enemies at the hands of anyone. And if he had been displeased with Mukhtar, he would have commanded them not to obey him. They returned while a group of the Shia were awaiting them so as to know their intentions, while their recourse towards Muhammad bin Hanafiya was displeasing to Mukhtar, who feared lest they would bring a message that would disperse the Shia from him. Therefore, when they entered Kufa, before going to their houses, they went to Mukhtar, who asked them, What happened that you fell in doubt and sedition? They replied, We have been ordered to assist you. And Mukhtar said, Allah is great. Then summon the Shia to me. They called for those who were within their reach, and Mukhtar said, A group desired that they should verify the validity of my claim, and therefore went to Imam Mahdi, that is Muhammad Hanafiya, and asked him regarding me. He replied to them that I am his vizier, assistant, and envoy, and he has ordered you to obey and assist me, with regards to my invitation of revolting against the enemies and seek revenge for the blood of the progeny, peace be upon them, of the chosen Prophet. Abdurrahman bin Shuray arose and gave them details of his journey and announced that Ibn Hanafiya had ordered them to assist and support him. Then he said, "Those who are present should inform those who are absent. Then prepare yourselves and beware." Thereafter those who had accompanied him also arose and confirmed his words. The Shia rallied around Mukhtar while along with them was Sha'bi and his father Sharahil. Then when they resolved to arise, one of his companions informed him that the chiefs of Kufa have united with bin Muti to fight with you. Then if Ibrahim ibn Malik Ashtar sides with us, we shall gain victory upon the enemies, for he is well versed in politics, while his father was honorable and from a great tribe, while his tribe is honorable and well equipped with men. Mukhtar replied, "Then visit him and invite him." Therefore a group, along with Sha'bi, went to meet Ibrahim, and they apprised him of their affairs and invited his assistance. They reminded him that his father was from among the friends of Imam Ali, peace be upon him, and his progeny. He replied, "I shall assist you in revenging the blood of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, with a condition that you shall make me your commander." They replied, "You are worthy to command, but presently this is not possible, for Mukhtar has been sent and deputed for this task by the Mahdi," referring to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, "to fight with the enemies, while we have been commanded to obey him." Hearing this, Ibrahim became silent and did not answer them, while they returned to Mukhtar and informed him. Mukhtar waited for 3 days and went to Ibrahim accompanied with more than 10 of his companions, and Sha'bi and his father. He received them fairly and made Mukhtar sit beside him. Then Mukhtar told him, "This letter is from the Mahdi, Muhammad bin Ali, the commander of the faithful, who is among the best of men today upon the earth, and is also the son of the best of men who have departed until he reaches the prophets of Allah and his messengers, and he desires that you should assist and support me." Sha'bi says that the letter was in my hand. When Mukhtar ended his words, he said, "Hand him over the letter." Sha'bi handed him over the letter and he read it, the contents of which were as follows: From Muhammad al-Mahdi to Ibrahim ibn Malik Ashtar, peace be upon you. I send praise of Allah besides whom there is no deity to you. And now then, I am dispatching to you my vizier, a trustworthy man, and the one whom I have chosen to fight against my enemies, and have commanded him to seek revenge for the blood of Ahlul Bayt. Therefore you, along with your tribe and those under your obedience, should fight alongside him. Then, if you obey us and accept our invitation, you shall certainly hold a position near us. Then you shall have control upon each horseman, the battalion, every city, pulpit, and border, from Kufa till Aqsa, the town of Syria, on which you gain victory. When Ibrahim completed reading the letter, he said, "Ibn Hanafiya has written to me earlier, and had only written his name along with that of his father, and not addressed himself as the Mahdi." Mukhtar replied, "That was another time, while this is another time." Ibrahim said, "Who knows this letter is from him or no?" A group of the companions of Mukhtar, comprising of Zayd or Yazid ibn Anas, Ahmar bin Shumait, Abdullah bin Kamil, and others, except Sha'bi, arose to bear witness that the letter was from him. When Ibrahim heard their witnesses, he arose from his elevated bed and sat Mukhtar in his place and pledged allegiance to him, and they left. Ibrahim turned towards Sha'bi and said, "You, as also your father, did not bear witness along with this group. Then do you consider them to be liars?" He replied, "Rather, they are the master scholars, reciters of the Quran, chieftains of the city, and the valorous among Arabs. Those similar to them do not speak except the truth." Then Ibrahim noted down their names and preserved it with himself, and invited his tribesmen and elders. Ibrahim started visiting Mukhtar every night and revising the fulfillment of their plans. They resolved to arise on Thursday night, the 14th of the month of Rabiul Ula, 66th year after Hijrah. That night Ibrahim recited the Maghrib prayers with his companions and thereafter went towards Mukhtar equipped with arms. Ayaz ibn Mazarib came to Abdullah bin Muti and said, Mukhtar plans to fight you tonight until tomorrow night, while I have dispatched my son to the ground of Kinasa. Then if you dispatch a man from among your companions, along with well equipped men to every ground of Kufa, Mukhtar and his companions would fear to revolt against you. Therefore, bin Muti sent the following with command upon the ground. He dispatched Abdur Rahman bin Qais Hamadani to the ground of Sabi and told him to gain control of his own clan but not to bring about any incident. He dispatched Ka'b bin Abi Ka'ab Khas'ami to the ground of Bashar, Zahr bin Qais Ju'fi to Kinda, Abdur Rahman bin Abi Makhnaf to Sa'idiyin, Shimr bin Ziljawshan to Salim, and Yazid bin Ruwaym to Murad. He commanded each one of them that the rebels should not cross them to enter the city. He dispatched Shabas bin Rabi to Sabha and told him, Whenever you hear any of their voices, go towards them. It was on Monday when the army of the empire occupied the grounds, and on the night of Tuesday, Ibrahim desired to join Mukhtar. He was informed that the grounds were filled with the army, while Ayas ibn Mazarib, along with his guards, had taken the streets and the royal palace under his protection. Ibrahim was accompanied by 100 men who had worn armors below their shirts. His companions told him to take a byway, but he said, No, by Allah, rather I shall pass from the center of the road and from near the royal palace to instill fear into the hearts of the enemies and announce that they are degraded and less in our eyes. Ibrahim passed by Bab al-Fil and circled the house of Amr bin Hurais. Ayas ibn Mazarib, along with an army well equipped with arms, faced him and asked, Who are you? Ibrahim replied, I am Ibrahim ibn al-Ashtar. To which Ayas asked, What is this group that you have brought along with you and what do you intend? I shall not lift my hands off you until I take you to my commander. Ibrahim replied, Get away from my way. To which he replied, I shall not do so. Abu Qatan Hamadani, who was one of the friends of Ibrahim, was along with Ayaz. Ibrahim called out to him, and he, presuming that Ibrahim would request him to mediate on his behalf, went towards him. When he neared him, Ibrahim snatched off his spear and pierced into the neck of Ayaz and threw him down, and commanded one of his companions to get hold of his head. While the army of Ayaz scattered and reached bin Muti, he deputed Rashid ibn Ayaz as the head of the police in place of his father and dispatched Suwaid bin Abdurrahman Manqari to Kinasa in his stead. Meanwhile, Ibrahim ibn al-Ashtar reached Mukhtar and said, We had decided to lay siege tomorrow night, but due to certain circumstances we should do so tonight. And he informed him about the killing of Ayaz. Mukhtar was pleased by this news and said, This is the first victory, Allah willing. Then he told Sa'id bin Manqas, Arise and set on fire dry sticks and reeds and give signal. And he told Abdullah bin Shaddad, Arise and announce, O defenders of the nation. Then he told Sufyan bin Layla and Quddama bin Malik, Both of you raise the slogan of, O revengers of the blood of Hussein. Then he himself wore the dress of battle, and Ibrahim said, This army that has gained control upon the grounds shall not let our companions reach us. It is better that I go to my tribe along with my companions and prepare those who obey us, and along with them I should surround the districts of Kufa and raise the slogan. Then those who desire to revolt would join us, while those who come to you should be taken care of. And if they attack you, there should remain with you such number of men who would defend you until I join you. Mukhtar replied, Go and hasten, but lest you attack the commander and fight them, then do not fight anyone except those who fight you. Ibrahim and his companions left and reached their tribe, and those who accepted their call accompanied them. He entered them on the streets of Kufa that very night and passed by the ground where the chiefs of Bin Muti had been stationed. There they met a group of cavalry of Zahr bin Qais Ju'fi who had no commander. Ibrahim attacked them and pushed them back until the road of Kinda, then said, O Lord, you know what we have come to rage for the sake of the progeny of your Prophet, peace be upon him and his pure progeny, and seek revenge for their blood. Bestow victory for us upon them. Then he came back after leaving those who had fled and reached the ground of Asir. A group of men raised slogans and Ibrahim halted there. Suddenly Suwaid bin Abdurrahman Manqari, with a greed to earn proximity to Bin Muti, galloped towards them, and when Ibrahim received news that he had come, he called out, O army of Allah, come forth, for you are more worthy of victory than these lewd men, who are submerged in the blood of the progeny of your Prophet. They proceeded further and attacked them until they pushed them into the desert. They started climbing upon each other's shoulders, vilifying one another. They chased them and entered them into the ground. The companions of Ibrahim told him, Some of us should follow them and should gain benefit from the fear that has been instilled in their hearts. Ibrahim replied, No, rather we should reach Mukhtar and relieve his heart. He should know that we are along with him, and he should be brave hearted along with his companions, and because it is possible that he must have been attacked till now. Ibrahim reached the door of the house of Mukhtar when he heard voices and perceived that battle was on. Shabaz bin Rabi had attacked them from the side of Sabkha, while Mukhtar had dispatched Yazid ibn Anas to face him. Hajjar bin Abjar Ajali too had laid siege, while Mukhtar had dispatched Ahmar bin Shamit to face him. At that moment, while fighting, Ibrahim came from the side of the royal palace, and Hajjar and his companions realized that Ibrahim had reached them from their backs. Therefore, they immediately scattered unto the streets, while Qais bin Tahfa Nahdi, one of the companions of Mukhtar, along with 100 men, attacked Shabaz bin Rabi, who was fighting with Yazid ibn Anas, and opened the way and reached Anas bin Yazid or Yazid bin Anas. When Shabaz saw this, he returned to Bin Muti and said, You should gather all the chiefs whom you have stationed on the grounds and collect the army at one place and attack them, while they have attained victory, while Mukhtar has prepared his task and has revolted. When Mukhtar was apprised of this, he came out of his house and along with a group of his companions positioned himself in Sabkha behind Dire Hind. Abu Usman Nahdi came out and proclaimed, O seekers of the revenge of blood of Hussein, O defenders of the nation, to the tribe of Shakir, who had gathered in their houses but had concealed themselves due to fear of Ka'ab Khas'ami, who had positioned himself close to them and had blocked their way. He then said, O the guided tribe, the trustworthy and the vizier of the progeny of Muhammad has arisen and has positioned himself near Dire Hind. He has sent me so that I may invite you and give you glad tidings. Then come out. May Allah have mercy upon you. They all scattered out calling, O seeker of revenge for Hussein, and fought with Ka'b until they opened their way and reached Mukhtar and stationed themselves alongside him. Abdullah bin Qatada joined Mukhtar along with 200 men. Ka'b attacked them, but when he realized that they were from his own tribe, he opened their way. Shibam, a branch of the tribe of Hamadan, too came out in the last part of the night. When this news reached Abdurrahman bin Sa'id Hamadani, who was one of the chiefs, he sent them message saying that if you intend assisting Mukhtar, do not pass by the cemetery of Sabi. They too joined Mukhtar, while 3,800 men from among the 12,000 who had pledged allegiance at his hands gathered around him until the dawn. He completed arranging them until dawn and recited the morning prayers along with his companions in darkness. Bin Muti summoned the chiefs of all the grounds to the mosque and commanded Rashid to announce that anyone who does not come tonight to the mosque, his blood and wealth is lawful upon us. Every one of them gathered, and Bin Muti dispatched Shabaz bin Rabi with an army of 3,000 men against Mukhtar, as also Rashid ibn Ayas with 4,000 guards. Shabaz proceeded towards Mukhtar while Mukhtar received the news of his arrival after the morning prayers and sent someone to investigate. Sa'ar bin Abi Sa'ar, who was one of the companions of Mukhtar and could not reach him until then, joined him. He informed him that Rashid ibn Ayaz had collided with him on the way. Mukhtar dispatched Ibrahim ibn al-Ashtar with 500 or 600 horsemen and 500 foot soldiers to face Rashid, and he also sent Na'im bin Hubayra, the brother of Masqala bin Hubayra, with 300 horsemen and 600 foot soldiers to face Shabaz bin Rabi. He ordered them to fight at night and not to fall prey to the enemy, for they were large in number than them. Ibrahim went towards Rashid, while Mukhtar sent Yazid ibn Anas with 900 men towards the site of the mosque. Shabas lined up facing him, and Na'im fought fiercely with Shabas. Na'im deputed Sa'ar bin Abi Sa'ar as commander upon the cavalry, and himself proceeded further along with the foot soldiers, and fought with them until the sun arose and the sunlight spread wide. The companions of Shabas attacked those of Na'im who scattered, while Na'im himself resisted strongly until he fell a martyr. May Allah's mercy and blessings be upon him. Sa'ar bin Abi Sa'ar too was arrested along with a group of his companions. They released the Arabs and killed the non-Arabs. Shabas proceeded and surrounded Mukhtar, who had turned feeble due to the death of Na'im. Bin Muti dispatched Yazid bin Hars bin Ruwaym with 2,000 men who blocked the entrance of the streets. Mukhtar handed over the command of the cavalry to Yazid ibn Anas and himself proceeded onto the ground along with the foot soldiers, while the cavalry of Shabas attacked him and the companions of Mukhtar resisted them. Yazid ibn Anas told them, O group of Shia, they kill you due to your affection for the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, and sever your hands and legs and blind your eyes and hang you upon the branches of the palm tree, even while though you remain seated in your houses obeying the enemies. Then what do you presume, if they gain victory upon you today? By Allah, in the twinkling of an eye they shall kill you with hands bound together, and shall treat your children, womenfolk, and wealth in a manner that death is better than beholding it. By Allah, you shall not pave the road of salvation from their side except through insistence and forbearance, besides opportune lances and impressive striking of the swords. Then prepare for the attack. Hearing this, they gained momentum, knelt down, and yielded to his orders. Ibrahim al Ashtar reached Rashid, who had 4,000 men along with him. He told his companions, Do not fear their large numbers. By Allah, for even one man can be better than 10, and Allah is along with those who forbear. Then Ibrahim turned towards his standard bearer and said, Take the standard further and kill the army behind you. They fought fiercely, while Khuzaimah bin Nasr Abasi reached Rashid and killed him while calling out, By the Lord of the Kaaba, I have killed Rashid. Hearing this, Rashid's companions fled, while Ibrahim, Khuzaimah, and their companions, after having killed Rashid, proceeded towards Mukhtar. They sent him a message, and when they received the glad tidings, they pronounced the takbir, and their hearts became stronger. Bin Muti dispatched Hassan bin Qa'id bin Bakr Abasi with 2,000 men towards Ibrahim ibn al-Ashtar to prevent him from reaching his army position at Sabha. Ibrahim attacked them and they fled without fighting them, while Hassan stayed behind and defended his companions. Khuzaimah attacked him and recognizing him said, O Hassan, if there would not have been relation between us, I would have killed you. Then save yourself. Suddenly his horse stumbled and he fell down upon the ground, while people surrounded him and he fought with them for a while. Then Khuzaimah told him, You are in protection. Do not hand over yourself to death. All of them lifted their hands off him, and Khuzaimah told Ibrahim, "He is my cousin while I have promised him protection." Ibrahim replied, "You have done fair." Saying this, he commanded that his horse be brought. He was seated upon his horse, and Ibrahim told him, "Go to your house." Ibrahim then proceeded towards Mukhtar, who was surrounded by Shabas bin Rabi. Yazid ibn al-Hars, who was positioned upon the entrance of the streets, faced him so as to desist him from reaching Shabas. Ibrahim dispatched a group of his companions with Khuzaimah bin Nasr to face him, and himself, along with some others, went to Mukhtar's aid. Ibrahim attacked the army of Shabas from behind, while Yazid ibn Anas too called out for battle. Shabas and his army fled and entered the houses of Kufa, while Khuzaimah bin Nasr too defeated Yazid ibn al-Hars, and they too fled and gathered in the entrances of the streets and behind the roofs. Mukhtar proceeded further, and when he reached the entrance of the street, they started shooting arrows at him and prevented him from entering Kufa from there. The defeated army of Sabha came to bin Muti, and he also received the news of the killing of Rashid and turned restless. Amr bin Hajjaj Zubaydi told him, "O man, do not clasp your hands. Go out to the men and invite them to face your enemy. There are numerous who will side you except these rebels whom Allah shall ultimately humiliate. I am the first one to accept it, while a group of men are along with me and another is with others." Bin Muti himself came out and reprimanded people for their fight and commanded them to face Mukhtar and his companions. When Mukhtar saw that Yazid ibn al-Hars would not let him enter Kufa, he turned his way towards the houses of Mazina, Ahmas and Bariq. They owned houses separated from the city. They gave water to his companions to drink, while Mukhtar himself did not partake, for he was in the state of fasting. Ahmar bin Shamit told bin Kamil, "Do you not know that he is fasting?" He replied in the affirmative. He said, "I wish he would break his fast, then he would be more stronger." Bin Kamil said, "He is infallible and is intelligent with regards to his responsibility." Ahmar replied, "You speak the truth, Allah's pardon." Then Mukhtar said, "This place is better for battle." Ibrahim replied, "Allah has entangled the opponent enemy in flight and instilled fear into their hearts. Then take us to Kufa. By Allah, there is none to block our way to the royal palace." Mukhtar then kept those among his companions who were old and ailing, as also his belongings, there, and appointed Abu Usman Nahdi to take care of them, and dispatched Ibrahim before him. Bin Muti dispatched Amr bin Hajjaj with 2,000 men to face Mukhtar. Mukhtar sent a message to Ibrahim saying that he should kneel down facing them. They knelt down while Mukhtar dispatched Yazid ibn Anas and commanded him to stand facing Amr bin Hajjaj. Then he himself proceeded behind Ibrahim and halted at the Musalla, that is the place of prayer of Khalid ibn Abdullah. When Ibrahim desired entering Kufa from the road of Kinasa, Shimr bin Ziljawshan came out against him with a group of 2,000 men. Mukhtar dispatched Sa'id bin Manqas Hamadani to face him and sent message to Ibrahim that he should continue moving. Ibrahim proceeded further until he reached the streets of Shabas, while Naufal bin Masahik had position thereat with 2,000 or 5,000 men, while the latter number is more reliable. Bin Muti ordered that it should be announced that people should join Ibn Masahik, and he himself positioned at Kinasa while giving the charge of the royal palace to Shabas bin Rabi. Ibrahim reached bin Muti and ordered his companions to dismount and said, "Do not fear when they say that Shabas has come, or the family of Atba bin Nahas has come, or the family of Ash'as, or Yazid ibn al-Arth, or family of so and so has come," naming all the families of Kufa. Then he retorted, "If they taste the fire of the swords, they shall flee away from Ibn Muti as a sheep flees away from the wolf." All of them obeyed his orders, while Ibn Ashtar tied the end of his shirt upon his waist, while all of them scattered in one manly attack. They ran upon each other's shoulders and gathered at the entrance of the streets. Ibn Ashtar reached Ibn Masahik and catching hold of his reins, lifted his sword upon him. Ibn Masahik said, O son of Ashtar, I request you in the name of Allah, does there exist envy or revenge of blood between us? Ibrahim spared him and said, Then remember this kindness, while he always remembered this favor. Then they entered Kinasa while pursuing those who had fled and took control of each market and mosque, while Bin Muti and those of the noblemen of Kufa who were along with him in the palace were surrounded, except Amr bin Hurais, who had remained in his house and had retired to the desert. Mukhtar himself entered and positioned himself at the corner of the market and deputed Ibrahim, Yazid ibn Anas, and Ahmar bin Shamit to surround the place. After 3 days of severe siege, Shabas told bin Muti, Find a way out for yourself and your companions. By Allah, they do not possess the power to save you or their own selves. Bin Muti replied, Then give me your opinion. Shabas replied, There is one way, and that is ask protection for yourself and us, and submit to them, and come out along with your companions, and do not kill yourself and your companions. Bin Muti replied, I consider it a shame to seek their protection when the commander of the faithful, he meant Abdullah bin Zubair, holds control upon Hijaz and Basra. Shabas said, Then you should come out of the palace in secret and enter the house of the one on whom you rely and remain there until you reach your master. Abdurrahman bin Sa'id, Asma bin Kharija, Ibn Makhnaf, and other noblemen too accepted his proposal. They remained there until night. Then Bin Muti told them, I know what the ignoble and lewd men did to you, while all the noblemen and meritorious among you listened and obeyed. I shall inform my master regarding this, and shall relate to him your obedience and battle until whatever Allah wills. All praised him, and he came out alone and took refuge in the house of Abu Musa. Ibn Ashtar reached the door of the palace, while the companions of Bin Muti threw open the doors after he had left and said, O son of Ashtar, are we in protection? He replied, All of you are granted protection. Thus they came out. All of them then swore allegiance to Mukhtar, who entered therein and spent the night therein, while the noblemen saw the dawn in the mosque and at the door of the palace. At dawn, Mukhtar came out and ascended the pulpit. After praising and glorifying Allah, he said, Praise be to the Lord who promised victory to his friend and to his enemy a share in losses, and has made these glad tidings a means of performance until the end of the world, and has approved his command, while the one who accuses will ultimately be dejected. O people, a standard was erected for us, and duration was fixed. It was said unto us, Raise the standard and perform this task in scheduled time and do not violate it. We paid heed to the invitation of the caller and heard the words of the announcer. And how many men and women are there who give news of death of those killed in the battle? Far be away the rebels, the treacherous, the disobedient ones, those who refute and flee away. Beware, O people, enter and pledge allegiance at the hands of guidance. I swear by the one who has made the sky a roof upon everyone, and has furbished valleys and roads upon the earth. After the allegiance of Ali bin Abi Talib and his progeny, may peace be upon them, you will not find any other allegiance more economical than this. Then he alighted the pulpit, and all the noblemen of Kufa came and swore allegiance at his hands upon the book of Allah, the customs of the Prophet, seeking avenge for the blood of Ahlul Bayt, and struggle against the cunning, defense of the weak, battle against the aggressors, and peace with Muslims. Munzir bin Hissan and his son Hissan too pledged their oath of allegiance to Mukhtar, and when they came outside after visiting him, Sa'id bin Manqas Thawri met them and said, By Allah, both of them are from among the leaders of tyrants. Then he killed both of them, and as much as Munzir kept saying, Lift your hands off us until we obtain orders from Mukhtar, he did not pay heed to him. When Mukhtar was informed about this episode, he disliked their attitude. While Mukhtar was giving fair promises to the people and was attracting the views of the notables to himself and was treating them with kindness. It was said to him, Bin Muti is present in the house of Abu Musa, but he did not reply and sent 100,000 dirhams at night with a message that, keep this as expenses for your journey, and I know as to where you are and that you intend going away, but you do not have the money. While there was friendship between them. Mukhtar had 1,000 dirhams in his treasury, from which he gave 500 dirhams each to those who remained with him until the siege of the palace, while they were 3,000 men, and he gave 20 dirhams each to those who had joined him after the siege of the palace, while remaining for 3 days of siege along with him. He met people courteously and made the notables sit with him. Then he appointed Abdullah bin Kamil Shakiri as the head of his police and appointed Kaisan Abu Umrah as the chief of guards upon the seat of his capital. One day when Abu Amr was standing at the head of Mukhtar while he was speaking with the notables and was paying heed to their words, one of his Persian friends told him in the Persian language, Do you not see that Abu Ishaq has turned towards the Arabs and does not look at us? Mukhtar asked him, What did he say? Abu Umrah repeated his words for him, and Mukhtar said, This should not be objectionable for you are from me and I am from you. Saying this, he bowed his head for some time and remained silent. Then he recited the following verse, Verily, we from the guilty ones shall exact the due retribution. The Holy Quran, Surah Sajda, verse 22. When they heard his words, they said, Have glad tidings, as if you are the ones who will kill, while he had meant to kill the notables. The first standard which Mukhtar fastened was for Abdullah bin Harth or Hurais, the brother of Malik al-Ashtar, and made him the governor of Armenistan. Then he appointed Muhammad bin Umair bin Atarud upon Azerbaijan, Abdullah Abdul Rahman bin Sa'id bin Qais upon Mosul, Ishaq bin Mas'ud upon Madain and Jawkha. He also appointed Qudama bin Abu Isa bin Zama'a Nasari, who was an ally of the Saqif tribe, upon the greater Bahqabaz, Muhammad bin Ka'b bin Qarza upon the central Bahqabaz, Sa'ad bin Huzaifa bin Yaman upon Halawan, and commanded him to fight the Turks and make peace therein. Ibn Zubair had appointed Muhammad bin al-Ash'as bin Qais as the governor of Mosul, and when Abdul Rahman bin Sa'id reached Mosul from the side of Mukhtar, Muhammad fled to Takrit and paused there to see as to view the circumstances. Then he came from there to Mukhtar and pledged allegiance at his hands. Then when Mukhtar became relieved of the rebels and other tasks, he called for audience of people and sat to judge and said, I have to attend to a task due to which I will not be able to accomplish this task of judging. Saying this, he appointed Shuray to judge among people. Shuray feared the people and therefore pretended to be ill, while people would say he befriends Uthman and gave witness against Hujr bin Adi, and did not even reach the message of Hani bin Urwa from the prison to the men, while Imam Ali, peace be upon him, himself had deposed him from judgment. And when this criticism came to his ears, he pretended to be ill and abdicated. Therefore Mukhtar appointed Abdullah bin Utbah bin Mas'ud in his place, but he too became ill. Then he appointed Abdullah bin Malik al-Ta'i. The elimination of the murderers of Imam Hussain, peace be upon him, by Mukhtar. In this year, that is 66 Hijrah, Mukhtar turned towards the murderers of Imam Hussain, peace be upon him, to kill them. The reason was because when the caliphate of Marwan ibn Hakam was established in Syria, he dispatched two armies, one to Hijaz under the command of Hubaysh bin Dalja Kaini, and the second towards Iraq under the command of Ubaidullah bin Ziyad. While we have discussed regarding him during the course of our discussion of the Tawwabin, he had promised Ibn Ziyad that on whatever he would lay his hands upon would be his own, and he had permitted him to plunder Kufa for 3 days. He blocked the island, where Qais Aylan and Zafar bin al-Hars, the partisans of Ibn Zubayr, remained, and he remained busy in skirmish with them for 1 year and remained unmindful of Iraq until Marwan died and his son Abdul Malik succeeded him. He too renewed the agreement entered with Ibn Ziyad by his father and commanded him to struggle for the fulfillment of his task. Therefore, when he could not lay his hands upon Zafar and Qais, he turned towards Mosul. Abdur Rahman bin Sa'id, who was appointed the governor upon Mosul by Mukhtar, wrote to him that Ubaidullah had stepped upon the soil of Mosul and that he had evacuated Mosul and had taken refuge in Takrit. Mukhtar called for Yazid ibn Anas Asadi and commanded him to go to Mosul and station himself at the nearest place therein until an army would be dispatched to assist him. Yazid replied, "Then give me the authority to select 3,000 horsemen so as to take along with me, and that I should be at liberty to take my own decisions, and if I am wanting of manpower, I shall ask help from you." Mukhtar agreed to his view and he selected 3,000 horsemen and left. Mukhtar escorted him and while parting with him said, "Then when you reach your enemy, do not give them respite and do not postpone any opportunity for tomorrow. Then inform daily regarding your reports. Then if you ever require help, write to me. I shall dispatch assistance to you even if you do not need help, so that your arms may become more stronger and your enemies fearful." Then people prayed for their well being, and he too prayed for them and said, "Desire the felicity of martyrdom for me, for by Allah, if victory parts away from me, I should not lose martyrdom." Then Mukhtar wrote to Abdur Rahman bin Sa'id that, "Hand over the cities of Mosul to Yazid." Yazid went to Madain and traversed through the land of Jawki and passed by Razanat and reached Mosul. He positioned himself at Bakuli and the news reached Ibn Ziyad. He said, "I shall dispatch 2,000 men against each 1,000. Then he dispatched Rabia bin Makharik Ganavi with 3,000 men and Abdullah bin Jumla Khas'ami with 3,000 also. Rabia entered Bakuli a day before Abdullah and stood facing Yazid. Yazid, who was severely ill, mounted his ass, while some people looked after him upon that, and arrayed his troops and incited them for combat and said, "If I die, your commander shall be Warqa bin Azib Asadi, and after him Abdullah bin Zamara Azari, who shall be succeeded by Sa'ar bin Abi Sa'ar Hanafi." Then he appointed Abdullah to lead the right wing and Sa'ar upon the left wing and appointed Warqa upon the cavalry, and himself was laid upon a bed in the midst of the army while he was saying, "If you wish, defend your commander or else desert him and flee." He was guiding the army while sometimes he was falling unconscious and sometimes regaining consciousness. The army started the battle at dawn on the day of Arafah and fought fiercely until the evening, while the Syrians scattered and their barracks came under the control of the companions of Yazid ibn Anas. They reached Rabia bin Makharik, the commander of the Syrians, whose companions had deserted him. He came down on foot and called out, "O friends of the truth, I am the son of Makharik. You are fighting against the slaves who have fled away and those who have left Islam." Hearing this, a group gathered around him, and again battle ensued, while the Syrians scattered for another time, and Rabia bin Makharik was killed. Abdullah bin Warqa Asadi and Abdullah bin Zamara Azari killed him. The losers settled for a moment, and Abdullah bin Jumla reached them along with 3,000 men and gathered those who had scattered and stationed himself at Bakuli. They spent the night patrolling, and at dawn, which was the day of Eid al-Duha, they fought fiercely. Then they halted at the time of the prayers of Zuhr and thereafter resumed fighting, while the Syrians fled and left Ibn Jumla along with a group of men. They fought until Abdullah bin Qirad Khasami attacked him and killed him, while the Kufans gained control of their barracks. They uprooted them while killing them and arrested 300 men, whom Yazid ibn Anas commanded to be put to death, while he himself was on the verge of death. They were killed, and he himself died at the end of the day, His companions buried him while they wandered. Warqa bin Azib Asadi, whom Yazid had appointed to succeed him, led his funeral prayers and then addressed his companions, saying, "What is your view? It has reached me that Ibn Ziyad himself is coming with an army of 80,000 men, while I am one of you. Therefore, give me your opinions." According to my view, in the circumstances that Yazid ibn Anas has died, while some have scattered away, we do not have the power to confront the Syrians. Then today, if retreat on our own, they will say that we have withdrawn due to the death of our commander in suspension, while our fear will still remain in their hearts. Then if we face them, we shall fall in danger. And today, if they rout us, their defeat of yesterday will not benefit us. They replied, "You have opined fairly." Saying this, they dispersed. Their news reached Mukhtar, and the Kufans created commotion and said, "Yazid has been killed and not died a natural death." Then Mukhtar called for Ibrahim and dispatched him with 7,000 men, saying, "If you come across the army of Yazid ibn Anas, you shall be their commander. Then take them back along with you until you reach Ibn Ziyad and his battalion and fight with them." Ibrahim made Hammamul Ayun his headquarters and proceeded further. When he had left, the chiefs of Kufa, in opposition to Mukhtar, gathered at the house of Shabaz bin Rabi and said, "By Allah, Mukhtar has become our commander without our consent and has emboldened our slaves. He has made them mount our horses and given a share of our wealth to them." Shabaz, who was their chief from the days of ignorance until the declaration of Islam, said, "Leave me, I will go and meet him." He came to Mukhtar and related to him all the complaints of the chiefs. Mukhtar answered each of their objections, saying, "I am here to comply to their consent and do whatever they desire." As regards the slaves and their entitlement to wealth, he answered, "I shall lift my hands off them and shall hand over all the wealth to you, so that you may fight the Bani Umayyah and Ibn Zubair, but with the stipulation that you shall pledge and promise with a proper assurance." Shabas replied, "I shall discuss your stated opinions with my companions." Saying this, he went to them but did not return back, and all of them consented to fight him. Thereafter, Shabas bin Rabi, Muhammad ibn al-Ash'as, Abdul Rahman bin Sa'id bin Qais, and Shimr together came to Ka'ab bin Abi Ka'ab Khas'ami and spoke to him regarding this, and he too consented with them. Then they, in conformity to one another, came to Abdul Rahman bin Makhnaf Azdi and invited him too. He replied, "If you listen to my words, do not fight them." They said, "Why not?" He replied, "I fear lest dispute might erupt amongst yourselves, while the valorous and champions among you," he named some of them, "are along with him, as also your slaves and retainers, and they have a single slogan. While the slaves detest you more than your enemies of the Arabian race, then they shall fight you with the valor of Arabs and enmity of the non-Arabs. Then if you give him some respite, others will suffice you. The Syrian and Basran army shall soon arrive, and they shall remove him from among your midst, while you do not fight amongst your own selves." They replied, "We request you by Allah not to oppose us, and do not ruin our consented opinions." He said, "Indeed, I am one of you, and whenever you may desire a rising, do so." As soon as Ibrahim left, they leapt upon Mukhtar and occupied the grounds of Kufa, and each chief took position in each lane. Then, when the news of their revolt reached Mukhtar, he dispatched a swift messenger to Ibrahim, who reached him at Sabat with orders to return back immediately. Then he dispatched someone to the chiefs of the revolters, saying, "Tell me as to what you desire, then I shall do whatever you wish for." They replied, "We desire that you remain away from us, because as you assert that you have been sent by Muhammad bin Hanafiya, while it has been known that he has not sent you." Mukhtar replied, "Then you may dispatch your messenger to him, and I too shall send mine, then wait until his message arrives." While Mukhtar desired to engage them in conversation until Ibrahim reached him, then he commanded his companions to lift their hands off them, while the Kufans had sealed the entrances of the lanes upon the revolters, and except some little provisions, none could reach them. Abdullah bin Sabi stationed himself upon the ground, while the clan of Bani Shakir fought fiercely with him. Then Aqba bin Tariq Jashami came and sided with him while defending him from them. Aqba came and positioned himself in Jabana Salul along with Shimr and Qais Ailan, while Abdullah bin Sabi, accompanied by the Yemenis, positioned himself upon the ground of Sabi. The messenger of Mukhtar reached Ibn Ashtar on the night of that day. Ibrahim himself returned and descended the next day. Then he gave rest to his horses and left at night until he reached Kufa the next day at the time of Asr. Then he spent the night along with his companions in the mosque. When the Yemenis gathered in the field of Sabi and the time of prayers arrived, each chief among them disliked that anyone among them should lead the prayers. Saying this, Abdur Rahman bin Makhnaf said, "This is the first discord. Then you may make the praiseworthy man the master of the reciters, Rufa'a bin Shaddad as the leader of prayers." He led their prayers until the battle started. Mukhtar aligned his companions in the street that did not have buildings. Then he commanded Ibn Ashtar to face the people of Bani Mudar, whose commanders were Shabaz bin Rabi and Muhammad bin Umair bin Atarud, and they positioned themselves at Kinasa. Mukhtar feared to dispatch Ibrahim towards the people of Yemen who were his tribesmen, lest he might falter to fight them, while Mukhtar himself went to face the people of Yemen who had stationed themselves at the road of Sabi. He stationed himself near the house of Amr bin Sa'id and dispatched Ahmar bin Shamid Bajali and Abdullah bin Kamil Shakiri forward and ordered each of them that they should proceed from a fixed route which would reach the field of Sabi. Then he told them in confidence that the tribe of Shibam had informed him that they would attack them from behind, and they proceeded further in accordance to the orders. When the people of Yemen were informed about their arrival, they split into two armies and faced them, and they fought such fiercely that men had not seen a more fierce battle than this. The companions of Ahmar bin Shamit and bin Kamil retreated back and joined Mukhtar. Mukhtar asked them as to what was the news, and they replied, "We were routed, and Ahmar bin Shamit had come on foot along with a group of his followers." While the companions of bin Kamil said, "We do not know as to what happened to him." Mukhtar, accompanied by them, turned towards the ground until he reached facing the house of Abu Abdullah Jadali. He positioned himself there and dispatched Abdullah bin Fuad Khasami with 400 men to search for bin Kamil and told him, "If bin Kamil has been killed, you shall take over the reins of his command in his stead and fight the enemies. And if he is alive, leave 300 men from this group with him and take the rest 100 along with you and go towards the road of Sabi and attack them from the side of Hammamul Qatn." He went and saw that bin Kamil was in the heat of the battle along with a group of his companions. He left 300 men with him and took 100 along with himself to the mosque of Abdul Qais and told his companions, "I befriend that Mukhtar should be victorious, but I also detest that today the noblemen of my clan should be killed at our hands. By Allah, I endure death rather than that they should be killed at my hands. Then position yourselves here, for I have heard that the tribe of Shibam shall attack them from behind. Perhaps they should do so, and we might be excused from it." They yielded to his words and spent the night near the mosque of Abdul Qais. Then Mukhtar dispatched Malik bin Amr Nahdi, who was a valorous man, along with Abdullah bin Sharik Nahdi and 400 men to aid Ahmar bin Shamit. They reached him when the enemies had reached upon his head and surrounded him. While when this group reached there, the battle became more intense. Ibn Ashtar, along with his army, reached facing the people of Mudar and met Shabaz bin Rabi and his companions and said, "Woe be to you! Refrain from battle and retreat back." They did not pay heed to his words and fought him until they had to flee. Hassan bin Qaid Abasi was wounded and was taken to his home where he died, while he was the associate of Shabaz bin Rabi. News was sent to Mukhtar that the Mudar had fled. While he sent this glad tidings to Ahmar bin Shamit and bin Kamil, and their front line became stronger. While the people of the tribe of Shibam gathered and appointed Abul Qalus as their commander, so as to attack the people of Yemen from behind. But they told one another, "We wish we could attack the tribes of Mudar and Rabia, for it was more appropriate." Abul Qalus did not reply, and they asked him, "What do you say?" He replied, "Allah the Mighty has said, 'Fight ye those of the infidels near you.'" Surah Tawbah, verse 123. They accompanied him towards the people of Yemen, and when they reached the entrance of the ground of Sabi, A'sar Shakiri collided with them, and they killed him while calling out, "O seekers of revenge for Hussein!" When Yazid bin Umair bin Zimaran Hamadani heard them, he called out, "O seekers of revenge for Uthman!" Hearing this, Rufa bin Shaddad said, "What do we have to do with Uthman? I shall not fight along with those who seek revenge for the blood of Uthman." A group of his tribesmen objected to him, saying, "You have brought us to the battlefield, and now when we see them entering the swords into them, you tell us to retreat and abandon them." He turned towards them and recited the following couplet: "I am the son of Shaddad and upon the religion of Ali. I do not befriend Uthman or a deceptor. Today I shall enter into the heat of the battle and shall attack fiercely." He fought until he was killed. Rufa'a previously sided with Mukhtar, but when he realized his alleged fraud, he desired to kill him unawares. That day he sided with the Kufans, and when Yazid bin Umair called out, "O seeker of the revenge of the blood of Uthman," he separated from them and fought, siding with Mukhtar until he was killed. Yazid bin Umair bin Zimaran and Noman bin Sahban Jarmi, who was a virtuous man, were also killed. Furad bin Zahr bin Qais too was killed, and Abu Zahr was wounded. Abdullah bin Sa'id bin Qais as also Umar bin Makhnaf were killed. Abdurrahman bin Makhnaf fought until he was wounded and was taken in the state of unconsciousness to his home, while the people of Azd fought surrounding him, and the people of Yemen were routed in the worst manner. They arrested 500 men from the houses of Wadiyan and were brought with hands bound together to Mukhtar. Mukhtar said, "Investigate regarding them, then inform me as to which of them were included in the murder of Hussein, peace be upon him." Then he put to death 248 men from among them who were included in the murder of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. His companions started putting to sword their enemies among the captives, and when Mukhtar saw this, he commanded that those of the captives who were left should be released. Mukhtar took an oath from them that they should neither side with his enemies, nor should they revolt against him or his companions or plot against them. The caller of Mukhtar announced, "The one who remains locked in his house shall remain in peace, except those who are included in the blood of the progeny of Muhammad." Amr bin Hajjaj Zubaydi, who had sided in the blood of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, mounted his camel and fled from the road of Waqisa, while none had any news up till now regarding him. It is said that the companions of Mukhtar found him while he had fallen down due to thirst, and they killed him and brought his head to Mukhtar. May Allah's eternal curse be upon him. When Furad bin Zahr bin Qais was killed, Aisha, daughter of Khalifa bin Abdullah, who was one of the wives of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, sent a message to Mukhtar requesting for his burial. He permitted her, and he was buried. Mukhtar dispatched one of his retainers named Zarbi behind Shimr bin Ziljoshan, who was along with his companions. When they neared him, Shimr told his companions, "You draw back, and perhaps this slave bears avarice with me." They went away from him, and Zarbi ran towards Shimr, who attacked him and killed him. Shimr, accompanied by his companions, ran out of Kufa and reached Sadna until night, and went towards a village called Qaltaniya, which was on the banks of a stream and at the foot of a hillock. They caught hold of a non-Arab man from the village and brought him to Shimr. He thrashed him up and said, "You should take my letter to Mus'ab bin Zubair." The man went to his village, in which Abu Umro, one of the companions of Mukhtar, was positioned on guard there between Mukhtar and the Basrans. The non-Arab man met another non-Arab man from his village and complained to him regarding his state and how Shimr had treated He also told him regarding the responsibility assigned to him. At that moment, one of the companions of Abu Umro, called Abdur Rahman bin Abi Kanud, met them and saw the letter of Shimr addressed to Mus'ab bin Zubair in their hands. He asked the man as to where was Shimr. He showed him the way, and there was a distance of less than 3 farsakh in between them. The companions of Shimr had warned him that it was dangerous to remain there and that they should leave from there. He replied, You fear this liar such? By Allah, I shall rest at this place for 3 days. But their hearts were full of fear, and when they slept, they heard the sound of the horses' hoofs. They said, This is the sound of the horses' hoofs. They neared them, and before his companions could arise, the cavalry came down from the hill and called out the takbir and surrounded the tents. His companions scattered in bewilderment and left their horses behind them. Shimr wound a cloak around himself while the marks of leprosy were visible from beneath it. He took a lance in his hand and hit it towards them. They had not even given him time to wear his clothes or ammunition. His companions, who had positioned themselves at the distance away from him, heard the voice of Takbir and someone calling out, The vicious one has been killed. Ibn Abi Kanud, who had seen his letter in the hands of the non-Arab man, killed him and scattered his remains in front of the dogs. May Allah's eternal curse be upon him, and may he remain in the deepest dent of hell. Thereafter Mukhtar returned to the royal palace from the ground of Sabi, and Suraka bin Mirdas Baraqi was arrested and brought to him. Suraka called out, Forgive me today, O disposer of goodness, O best among every master of diligence and eminence, in the pilgrimage, continuance of mercy and effort in prostration. Mukhtar sent him to a prison, and on the preceding day summoned him. He faced Mukhtar and said, May Allah amend the tasks of the commander. I swear by Allah, besides whom there is no other deity, I have seen the angels mounted upon piebald swift horses between the heavens and the earth, assisting you. Mukhtar said, Then mount the pulpit and announce to the men what you saw. Then he mounted the pulpit and reported and alighted. Mukhtar took him in secret and said, I know that you have not seen anything, and you desired that I should save you from killing. Then go to any place that you desire. Then go, for you are at liberty, but then do not incite your men against me. He left Kufa and reached Basra. Then he joined Mus'ab. On that day, Abdur Rahman bin Sa'id bin Qais Hamadani was killed, while Sa'ar bin Abi Sa'ar, Abu Zubair Shibami, and another man claimed to have killed him, while Shibam is a branch of the tribe of the Hamadan. The son of Abdur Rahman told Abu Zubair Shibami, Have you killed my father Abdur Rahman, the chief of your own clan? He replied, The one who believes in Allah and the day of resurrection does not befriend the enemies of Allah, even if they be his father or brother. And in this battle, 880 men were killed, while mostly those killed were from among the Yemanis. The date of this struggle was the 6th of Zilhajj, 66th year after Hijrah. Thereafter the notables scattered away and reached Basra, while Mukhtar then turned towards killing the murderers of Imam Hussain, peace be upon him. He said, Our religion is not that we may live and leave the murderers of Imam Hussain, peace be upon him, alive. In that case, what bad companions should we be in this world for the progeny of Muhammad, while I would become the liar as is attributed to me. I solicit Allah's assistance upon them. Then inform me regarding each of them, and pursue them until you kill them. And eating and drinking is detestable for me until I do not purify this earth of them. They informed him regarding Abdullah bin Usayd Jahni, Malik bin Bashir Badi, and Haml bin Malik Muharibi. Mukhtar dispatched someone and summoned them from Qadisiyah. When his sight fell upon them, he said, O enemies of Allah and the Prophet of Allah, where is Hussein bin Ali? Settle the debt of Hussein. You have killed those on whom you were ordered to send salutations. They replied, May Allah's mercy be upon you. We were compelled to go there. Therefore oblige us and leave us alive. He replied, Why did you not oblige Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet, and leave him alive nor give him water to drink? while Badi, that is Malik bin Bashir, had seized the burnous of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, Mukhtar ordered that both his hands and legs should be severed. He was laid down and he coiled until he died, while the two others were killed similarly. Then Mukhtar summoned Ziyad bin Malik Zabai, Imran bin Khalid Kushairi, Abdul Rahman bin Abi Khashkar Bajali, and Abdullah bin Qais Khawlani. They were brought to him, and when his sight fell upon them, he said, O murderers of the virtuous ones, O murderers of the Master of the dwellers of paradise, today Allah seeks retribution from you. It was an ill omened day on which you raided the dye weeds, while they had looted the dye weeds of Imam. Mukhtar ordered them to be killed. Abdullah and Abdul Rahman, the sons of Salkhab, were then brought to him, along with Abdullah bin Wahab bin Amr Hamadani, the cousin of A'mash Hamadani. Mukhtar ordered them to be killed too. Then they brought Usman bin Khalid bin Usaid Dahmani Jahni and Abu Asma bin Bishr bin Shumayd Kanesi, who had assisted one another in killing Abdul Rahman bin Aqil and stripping him. He ordered them to be beheaded, and they were thrown into the blazing fire. Then he summoned Khawli bin Yazid Azbahi, who had brought the head of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, to Kufa. When they went in his pursuit, he hid himself in the lavatory, while the companions of Mukhtar entered his house to search him. His wife Ayuf, the daughter of Malik, who had become his enemy from the night he had brought the head of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, came outside and said, What do you desire? They asked, Where is your husband? She replied, I do not know. Saying this, she pointed towards the lavatory. They went there and caught him while he had worn a leather upon his head. They brought him outside and killed him in front of his family and burned him. May Allah's eternal curse be upon all of them. Elimination of Omar bin Sa'ad and other murderers of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. One day Mukhtar told his associates, Tomorrow I shall kill a man who is big-footed, with sunken eyes and stout eyebrows, the murder of whom will please the believers and the neared angels. Haysam bin al-Aswad Nakhai, who was near him, understood that he meant Omar bin Sa'ad. He returned home and sent his son Irban to Omar and informed him. Omar replied, May Allah reward your father fairly. How can Mukhtar kill me after bestowing promises and oath to me? Abdullah bin Ja'daj bin Hubayra was a relative of Imam Ali, peace be upon him, and was more endeared to Mukhtar than anyone else. Omar bin Saad had asked his intervention and had secured a letter of protection from him. In the letter, Mukhtar had deliberately stated that any incident, that is hadisa, should not come forth from his side, while what he meant was to answer the call of nature, for hadas also means that. When Irban returned, Umar came out of his house and went to Hammama and asked for explanation of the deed of security from one of his retainers. The person replied, It has been related on oath that no impurity, that is hadas, should be done on your part. And what impurity, that is hadas, is bigger than that you have left your house and have come here? Thus hasten to your house and do not create any excuse for you. Hearing this, Omar hastened to his house, while it was informed to Mukhtar that Omar bin Sa'ad had left his house. He replied, No, never. He has a chain bound in his neck which will bring him back. On the preceding morning, Mukhtar dispatched Abu Umro in his pursuit. He came to Omar and said, Answer the call of the commander. Omar arose while his legs got entangled in his shirt and he fell down upon the floor. Abu Amr dealt a blow at him with his sword and killed him. May Allah's eternal curse be upon him, and brought his head to Mukhtar. Mukhtar told his son Hafs, who was seated near him, Do you recognize this head? He answered, Verily yes, while life after him does not seem fair. Mukhtar ordered him to be killed too and said, That was in lieu of Hussein, and this is in lieu of Ali bin Hussein, peace be upon them both. By Allah, if I kill 1/3 of a quarter of Quraysh, debt of even one of their fingers will not have been given. The reason for his agitation in killing Umar was that Yazid bin Sharahil Ansari went to the presence of Muhammad bin Hanafiya. He saluted him, and when their conversation reached Mukhtar, Ibn Hanafiya said, "He perceives that he is our Shia when the murderers of Hussein, peace be upon him, are seated on the chairs facing him and he speaks to them." When Yazid returned to Kufa, he informed Mukhtar regarding it. Thus he killed Umar bin Saad and sent his head to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya and wrote to him that, "Whenever I will find them, I will kill them, while I am in pursuit of the remaining ones who had participated in the murder of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him." Abdullah bin Sharik says that I have seen men wearing fringed robes and black caps and mounted, that when Omar passed by them before he was killed, they would say, "He is one of the murderers of Hussein." Ibn Sirin says that Imam Ali, peace be upon him, had once told Omar bin Saad, "When you shall reach a place and shall have an option to choose between paradise and hell, while you shall select hell." Thereafter Mukhtar dispatched someone in pursuit of Hakim bin Tufail Ta'i, who had plundered the clothes of Abbas ibn Ali, peace be upon him, and had shot an arrow at Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, and would say, "My arrow pierced his shirt but caused him no harm." The companions of Mukhtar arrested him while he dispatched someone to Adi bin Hatim so as to intervene on his behalf. Adi spoke to those who had arrested him, and they replied that option lies with Mukhtar. Thus he went to meet him. While Mukhtar had accepted his intervention for some people of his tribe who were arrested in the ground of Sabi, the Shia said, "Perhaps he may accept intervention for him." Saying this, they shot arrows at him in penalty of the arrows that he had shot at Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, and had made his body similar to the porcupine. Adi went to Mukhtar, who made him sit with him, and he intervened on Hakim's behalf. Mukhtar replied, "Is it that I should release the murderers of Hussein, peace be upon him?" Adi replied, "He has been falsely accused." Mukhtar said, "Then if it is true, we shall leave him to you." Bin Kamil entered therein and informed Mukhtar of his murder. Mukhtar said, "Why did you make haste in killing him and did not bring him to me?" While in his heart he was pleased by his murder. Bin Kamil replied, "The Shia arrested him forcefully and killed him." Adi told Bin Kamil, "Rather you speak a lie. You perceived lest the one who is better than you might accept my intervention for him. Therefore you killed him." Bin Kamil started abusing Adi while Mukhtar restrained him. Thereafter Mukhtar dispatched someone in pursuit of the murderer of Ali al-Akbar, Munqiz bin Murrah, from the clan of Abdul Qais, while he was a valorous man. They surrounded his house when he mounted his horse, and with a lance in his hand attacked them. A sword was struck at his hand, but he scattered from their midst and saved himself and reached Mus'ab bin Zubair. But his hand turned ill and worthless. Then Mukhtar sent someone behind Zayd bin Riqqad Habbani. He would say, "I shot an arrow at one of the martyrs and fixed his hand upon his forehead," while he was none other than Abdullah bin Muslim bin Aqil. He could not separate his hand and said, "O Lord, they consider our worth to be less and consider us to be wretched. Thus kill those who kill us." Then another arrow pierced his heart, and when I came to his head, he had already died. Then I pulled out the arrow from his heart that had killed him. I tried pulling out the arrow that had pierced his forehead and shook it, and its handle came out, but the point remained stuck. When the companions of Mukhtar surrounded him, he attacked them sword in hand. Bin Kamil said, "Do not attack him with lances or swords, rather shoot arrows and stones at him." They brought him down to his feet by shooting arrows and stones at him, and then burned him alive. May Allah's curse be upon him. Then Mukhtar dispatched someone to fetch Sinan ibn Anas, who had claimed to have killed Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. But he was informed that Sinan had fled to Basra, therefore he ordered his house to be demolished. It is also related that Sinan ibn Anas was arrested and brought to Ibrahim ibn Malik Ashtar, who told him, "Woe be to you! Are you capable to speak the truth as to what you did on the day of Ashura in Karbala? Sinan replied, I did not do anything else except looting some pieces of Imam Hussein's clothing. Hearing this, Ibrahim wept and ordered the flesh of his thigh or leg to be cut into pieces when he was on the verge of death. Ibrahim beheaded him and burnt his evil corpse. May Allah's eternal curse be upon Sinan ibn Anas. Then Mukhtar summoned Abdullah bin Uqba Ghanawi. He too had fled to northwest Mesopotamia while his house too was destroyed. He had killed a child at Karbala. Thereafter, a man from the clan of Bani Asad, namely Hurmala bin Kahil Asadi, was summoned, who had killed one of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon him, that is Janabi Ali Asghar, but he could not be caught. It is narrated from Minhal bin Umro that after returning from Makkah, I went to Medina to meet Imam Ali Zain al Abidin, peace be upon him. I saluted him and sat down. Imam asked me, O Minhal, what news do you have regarding Hurmala bin Kahil Asadi? I replied, I found him alive and safe while I left Kufa. Hearing this, Imam lifted his hand towards the heavens and said, O Lord, let him taste the heat of iron. O Lord, let him taste the heat of the fire. Thereafter, I went to Kufa and found out that Mukhtar had risen to seek vengeance from the murderers of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. I was friendly with Mukhtar and went to meet him, and he inquired regarding myself. Then we started walking until we reached Kanais, where he halted, as if waiting the arrival of someone. Suddenly a group hastened towards him with the news that Harmala had been arrested. When he was brought to Mukhtar, he said, Praise be to Allah who has granted us power upon you, the enemy of Allah and his Prophet. Then he called for the executioner and said, Sever his hands and feet. They yielded. Then he ordered fire to be kindled and a sword was placed in it until it turned red hot. Then his neck was severed with it. May Allah's eternal curse be upon Harmala bin Kahil. Seeing this, Minhal says, I exclaimed, Glory be to Allah. Hearing this, Mukhtar asked me the reason for glorifying Allah at that moment. I related to him the above episode, hearing which he was overjoyed and dismounted from his mount. Then he recited 2 units of prayers and glorified Allah for a lengthy period of time for offering him the grace of becoming a medium of fulfillment of desire of Imam Ali Zain al Abidin, peace be upon him. Then Mukhtar dispatched someone in pursuit of a man from Bani Khas'am named Abdullah bin Urwa Khas'ami, who would say, I shot 12 arrows at the companions of Hussein. But he too could not be arrested and had joined Mus'ab bin Zubair while his house too was destroyed. Then they chased Amr bin Sabah Sada'i, who would say, I wounded the martyrs but killed none. They arrested him and at night brought him to Mukhtar, who ordered him to be killed with lances until he died. Muhammad bin al-Ash'as was pursued, who had taken refuge in his village in the south of Qadisiyah, but they could not lay their hands upon him, for he had fled to Mus'ab. Mukhtar ruined his house, and with the clay and bricks he repaired the house of Hujr bin Adi, which was destroyed by Ziyad. Ibrahim bin Malik Ashtar leaves for battle with Ubaidullah bin Ziyad. In this way, 8 days remained of the month of Zilhajj when Ibrahim bin al-Ashtar left for a combat with Ibn Ziyad. He left 2 days after the incident of Sabi. Mukhtar dispatched all the valorous, handsome and wise, experienced and trained men among his companions along with him. He himself escorted him until the monastery of Abdur Rahman bin Hakam. There they met the companions of Mukhtar, the occupants of the chair which they had established upon a red mule, and would pray for his victory. When Mukhtar's sight fell upon them, he said, By the Lord who sends forth with goodness one after the other, they shall be killed horde after horde, and the oppressors shall be eliminated in thousands. Then he bade farewell to Ibrahim and said, Remember 3 things from me. Fear Allah openly and in secret. Hasten in proceeding further when you reach the enemy. Do not give respite and leap upon them. Ibrahim left until he reached the occupants of the chair who had gathered around it and were praying with their hands raised towards the heavens. Ibrahim said, O Lord, do not entangle us in the tasks of our foolish men. By him in whose hands is my life, this is of the custom of Bani Israel, who had gathered around the calf. The occupants of the chair returned while Ibrahim proceeded towards his goal. Elimination of Ubaidullah bin Ziyad. Ibrahim ibn al-Ashtar hastily left Kufa so as to reach Ibn Ziyad before he entered the territory of Iraq. Ibn Ziyad, accompanied by a huge army, had come from Syria and occupied Mosul. Ibrahim came and passed by Iraq and entered Mosul. He appointed Tufail bin Laqit Nakhai, who was a valorous man, to command the front line of his army. Then when they neared Ibn Ziyad, he arrayed his army and arranged them in ranks. He proceeded further, and for the sake of investigation, he dispatched Tufail further and himself reached the river of Khazir of Mosul. He positioned himself in a village therein named Barmisa. Ibn Ziyad too came facing him and positioned himself near him on the banks of the river Khazir. Umair bin Habbab Salami, one of the companions of Ibn Ziyad, secretly sent a message to Ibn Ashtar, Meet me specially. The entire tribe of Qais had borne enmity with Abdul Malik ibn Marwan after the episode of Marj Rahit, while the army of Abdul Malik was the same tribe of Kalb. Umair and Ibn Ashtar met one another, and Umair said, I am the commander of the left wing of the army of Ibn Ziyad, and I promise to abandon the left wing and flee away. Ibn Ashtar asked him, What is your opinion? Should I dig trenches and await for 2-3 days? Umair replied, Beware, the enemy does not desire anything except this. Every delay will be a boon for them who are similar to you in numbers. The scant army in postponement does not have power to ward off numerous enemies. Attack them without respite while their hearts are still in awe. And if they blend with your army and fight day by day and in turn become familiar with them, they will turn audacious. Ibrahim replied, Now I have realized that you are my well-wisher, while Mukhtar too had advised me similarly. Umair replied, Then obey him, for he is an expert in warfare, while none is more experienced than him in this, and fight them this very morning. Umair returned to his army, and Ibn Ashtar gnashed his teeth while sleep did not enter his eyes. When it dawned, he prepared his army and arrayed the groups while appointing the commanders. He appointed Sulaiman bin Yazid Azdi upon the right wing of his army and Ali bin Malik Jashami upon the left wing, while he was the brother of Ahwas. He gave the charge of the cavalry to Abdul Rahman bin Abdullah, his foster brother, while his cavalry were quite less in numbers. He appointed Tufail bin Laqit to command the foot soldiers and handed over his standard to Mazahim bin Malik. Nearing dawn, he recited the prayers in darkness and arranged his companions. He stationed the appointed ones in their place and himself came on foot while encouraging his army. He gave them tidings of victory and took them in joy upon the huge hillock that stooped down upon the enemy. He was informed that none of them had moved from their place. He dispatched Abdullah bin Zuhair Salwani to investigate regarding it. He returned and said, Every one of them were in the state of fear and indolence. One of them met me and they say, O Shia of the progeny of Abu Turab, O Shia of the liar Mukhtar. While I replied, What we possess is far more important than abusing. Thus Ibrahim mounted and neared the standards, while he remembered that Ibn Ziyad had killed Hussein and his companions and family, and he also remembered the captivity of his women and blockage of water. Thus he incited them to kill him. The army of the enemy came face to face. Ibn Ziyad appointed Hasin bin Namir as the commander of the right wing of the Syrians and Umair bin Habbab Salami upon the left wing. He gave the charge of the cavalry to Sharabil ibn Zikala. Then, when they neared, Hasin attacked the left wing of Ibrahim with the right wing of the Syrians. Ali bin Malik Jashami confronted him until he was killed. Then Qurra bin Ali lifted the standard and he too pressed in along with a group of valorous men until he was killed, while the left wing started to flee. Then Abdullah bin Warqa bin Janada Saluli, the nephew of Habashi bin Janada, who was from one of the companions of the Prophet of Allah, peace be upon him and his pure progeny, lifted up the standard and took charge of the fleeing ones and called out, O army of Allah, rally around me. He then gathered most of them around him and said, Your commander himself is fighting Ibn Ziyad. Come, let us go to him. They came back to Ibrahim and saw that he had bared his head and was calling out, O army of Allah, come to me. I am the son of Ashtar. The best fugitive is the one who attacks once more, while the one who excuses from re-attacking has committed evil. Thus his companions returned to him. The right wing of Ibrahim attacked Umair bin Ziyad or Umair bin Habab, perceiving that Umair would flee the battle as promised. But Umair confronted them severely and considered fleeing away to be a disgrace. When Ibrahim saw this, he said, We shall attack the vast central part of their army with a group, and if we rout them from their place and make them flee, those whom you see on our right and left shall fly away like frightened birds. His army attacked one side together and fought with one another with lances, swords, and clubs, and fought for some time. The sound of iron sounded similar to the pounding of clothes by the washermen. Ibrahim told his standard bearer, Take the standard into the ranks of the enemy. He said, There is no way to proceed further. Ibrahim replied, Yes, there is. And when he took a step further, Ibrahim attacked severely with his sword, and he threw anyone who came in his way and crushed the foot soldiers as if they were a flock of cattle. His companions too followed suit, while a fierce battle ensued. The army of Ibn Ziyad started fleeing, and numerous people from both the armies fell upon the ground. It is said that the first one to flee was Umair bin Habab, while his earlier combat was just an excuse. When the enemy had fled, Ibrahim said, I have killed a man under the standard lonely upon the bank of the Khazir river. Go and find him, for I smelled the fragrance of musk emanating from him. Both of his hands had fallen towards the east and his legs towards the west. They found him, and he was none other than Ubaidullah bin Ziyad, who had been divided into two by the sword of Ibrahim and as described by him. They took hold of his head and burned his body. May Allah's eternal curse be upon him and his associates, and may he remain eternally in the lowest dent of hell. Sharik bin Judair Taghlubi attacked Hasin bin Namir Sakuni and assumed him to be Ibn Ziyad. They scuffled with one another, and Taghlubi called out, Kill me along with this illegitimate one. Thus they killed Hasin. It is also said that Sharik killed Ibn Ziyad. Sharik had accompanied Imam Ali, peace be upon him, in the battle of Siffin, and his eyes had become weak. And when Imam Ali, peace be upon him, passed away, he went to Baytul Muqaddas and settled there in seclusion. And when Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, was martyred, he took an oath to Allah that if revenge for his blood would be sought, he would kill Ibn Ziyad or himself be killed. And when Mukhtar arose to revenge the blood of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, he turned towards him and accompanied Ibrahim to Jabha. And when the Syrian army was attacked, he split the ranks along with his companions who were from Rabia until he reached Ibn Ziyad. Then dust arose and none could see each other, and except striking of iron nothing could be heard. And when the dust settled, both Sharik and Ibn Ziyad had fallen down, killed. But the first narrative is more reliable, of Ibn Ziyad being killed at the hands of Ibrahim ibn Malik Ashtar. Sharik was the same one who had composed, I consider every life to be futile except the lances under the shadow of the horses. Sharabil ibn Zikala Humairi too was killed, while Sufiya bin Hasid Azdi, Warqa bin Azib Asadi, and Abdullah bin Zuhair Salami each claimed to have killed him. Uyayna bin al-Asma was along with Ibn Ziyad, and when the army of Ibn Ziyad was routed and fled, he took along with him his sister Hind, the daughter of Asma and wife of Ibn Ziyad, while reciting the following rajas. Then if you have severed our ropes, you have also flung valorous upon the ground. When the army of Ibn Ziyad fled from the battle, the companions of Ibrahim pursued them and threw them into the river, while those who were drowned were mostly the murderers of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. Then they took hold of the barracks with all their provisions as booty. Ibrahim sent the glad tidings of victory to Mukhtar, and he received it in Madain. Ibrahim dispatched his officials to the cities of Mosul that were under their control. He appointed his foster brother Abdul Rahman bin Abdullah upon Nasibain and gave him dominance upon Sanjar and Darad and its surroundings from the island of Arazi. He appointed Zafar bin Hurais as the governor of Qarqisiyya and Hatim bin Nu'man Bahili upon Haran, Riha, Samisat and its districts. He also appointed Umair bin Habbab Salami the governor of Kafar-e-Tawsa and Taure Asabadan, while Ibrahim himself positioned at Mosul. He then sent the head of Ubaidullah along with that of his other commanders to Mukhtar, and they were scattered in the palace. A small snake was seen crawling among the heads, and it entered the mouth of Ubaidullah and came out of the opening of his nose. Then it entered through the other opening of his nose and came out of his mouth, and repeated this act several times. Tirmizi has quoted similarly in his Jami. Mughira says that the first one in Islam to mint false coins was Ubaidullah bin Ziyad. One of the porters of Ubaidullah bin Ziyad entered the royal palace along with him at the time of the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him. Suddenly the face of Ibn Ziyad became ablaze, and he wiped it by the sleeve of his shirt and told the porter, "Beware, do not relate this to anyone." Mughira says that after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, Marjana, the mother of Ubaidullah, told him, "O unchaste, you killed the grandson of the Prophet of Allah, you shall never see paradise." Here concludes that what is quoted from Kamil of Ibn Asir. It is quoted in Bihar al-Anwar from Sawab al-A'mal through chain of narrators from Ammar bin Umair Tamimi that when the head of Ubaidullah bin Ziyad and his companions were brought, I went to them and people said, "It's come, it's come." Suddenly a snake came and started crawling in the midst of the heads. It entered the opening of the nose of Ubaidullah and came out and then entered through the other opening of his nose. It is related in Kamil al-Ziyara through chain of transmitters from Abdur Rahman Ghanavi in context of the narration that soon Yazid was inflicted, and after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein, peace be upon him, he did not benefit while he died suddenly. He slept at night in an inebriate state, and in the morning his corpse had turned black similar to tar and had fallen prey to remorse, and there was none who had obeyed him in the martyrdom of Imam Hussein and fought with him, except that he had turned insane or developed leprosy or paralysis, and this continued in his progeny as inheritance. It is related in Akbarud-Dawl of Yusuf Kirmani that Yazid was born in the year 25 or 26 after Hijrah, while he was stout, obese, and with abundant hair. His mother was Maysoon, the daughter of Bajdul Kalbi, until he says that Naufal bin Abil Furat says that I was in the presence of Omar bin Abdul Aziz when a man pronounced the name of Yazid along with the epithet of the commander of the faithful. Hearing this, Omar bin Abdul Aziz said, "You address him as the commander of the faithful?" Saying this, he ordered him to be flogged 20 times. Ru'yani in his Musnad relates from Abu Darda that I heard the Prophet of Allah, peace be upon him, and his pure progeny, as saying that the first one to change my customs will be from among the Bani Umayyah by the name of Yazid. Yazid died in the month of Rabiul Ula, 64th after Hijrah, due to pleurisy in Hawran. His corpse was brought to Damascus, where his brother Khalid, while some say his son Muawiyah, recited prayers upon his dead body. He was buried in the graveyard of Bab as-Saghir, while his grave has now been turned into a trash can, while he lived for 37 years and his caliphate lasted for 3 years and 9 months. Thus ends the book Nafsul Mahmoom fi Maqtal al-Husayn al-Mazloom on the Asr of Friday, the 20th of Jamad al-Akhir, 1335 after Hijrah, corresponding to the birthday of Our Lady Sayyida Fatima Zahra, peace be upon her. Benedictions and upon her father, and upon her spouse and her sons, composed at the hands of the guilty author Abbas, the son of Muhammad Raza Kummi. May Allah nullify his faults, facing the dome of the mausoleum of Imam Ali Rada, peace be upon him. 1,000 greetings and salutations upon His Eminence, and praise be to Allah at the beginning and the conclusion, and Allah's benedications upon Muhammad and his chaste, virtuous, and infallible progeny. May Allah's peace be upon all of them. The English translation of this felicitous book ends on Wednesday, 29th January 2003 AD, that is 25 Ziqada 1423 after Hijrah, corresponding to the blessed day of Da'ul Ardh, at the hands of the humble most adherer of the threshold of Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, Ejaz Ali al Husseini.